Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Angus. I am the supervisor for the Independence Township Senior Community Center. On behalf of the Parks, Recreation, and Seniors, we would like to extend a warm welcome to the 13th Annual Independence Fest Veterans Celebration. As we join together to celebrate our nation's independence, we take this time to remember the sacrifice of both those present and those who gave their lives defending and protecting the freedoms of our nation. It is an honor to be here with you today and your guests. We take this opportunity to say thank you to all veterans for your service to our country. I ask everyone who is able, and you are already standing, to remain standing for the posting of the colors by the American Legion Campbell Richmond Post Color Guard. You can go ahead and sing the national anthem.
Right now?
Yep. Okay. Perfect.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. You may be seated. That's okay. That's okay. We can do the pledge now. Well, no, we'll forget it. At this time, I would like to introduce our guest speaker. Please join me in welcoming United States Army Special Forces Green Beret serviceman, Director of Transcend Foundation, and Clarkston native, Brendan Quisenberry.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Jen introduced, my name is Brendan Quisenberry, and I am about to retire out as a 20-year Special Forces Green Beret, so looking forward to that. As I stand up here today, I think it's pretty cool as I kind of look around, and as I was born and raised in Clarkston, Michigan, I played t-ball right over here as a kid, so kind of thinking of the memories of what I did over there when I was a child playing t-ball. And as I glance across the fields over here, playing some intensive soccer games when I was a kid as well. So this moment is kind of surreal to me as far as like being able to kind of give a speech 20 years later after my military career on just being up here and kind of representing the veteran community. So I'm very thankful for that. So I just want to thank Jen for allowing me to come out and be able to give that speech. So I was a third generational family member that served in the United States military. My grandfather served, my dad served, and I decided to do that as well. So I thought it was pretty interesting. As I was graduating Clarkston, 2004, there was a little bit of family obligations and the ability to let me continue the family name and continue to serve and everything like that. But really deep down, when I was a kid, I knew I wanted to go in and serve, and fight for my country. And then, of course, 2004, 2003 happened, and then as soon as I graduated Clarkston High School, I shipped out. I was an 11 Bravo infantryman and went into the United States Army. Graduated basic training, went into airborne school, and then eventually went over to the 82nd Airborne Division. Upon arriving at the 82nd Airborne Division, it was about 3 months, and I immediately sent off to Baghdad, Iraq for a short but intensive deployment for about 60, 75 days for the elections over there. After I returned back from that unit, basically I ended up volunteering. I went to United States Army Ranger School, the Army's premier leadership school. After graduating that, I went to sniper school, and then upon graduating sniper school, my unit was called up again to eventually serve, and I went over to Afghanistan for the first time around 2007, which was a 15-month deployment for my unit to be able to go over there. Two distinctive things I kind of remember about that deployment. One was the fact that I turned 21 and 22 in that country at that time, so I wasn't even able to have my first legal beer until I was 22. And then the second kind of portion of that deployment I remember was we ended up getting tasked with working with United States Army Special Forces guys. So at this point in time, I'm just an infantry guy, scout, sniper, infantry guy. Trying to look for a mission. We were trying to look for some stuff to do, but these Special Forces guys basically came and asked us, hey, what are you doing? Can we use you? And of course, we want to go participate with those guys. We look up to them. They're the absolute best. So it was really cool. I got to tag along with them for a good chunk of that deployment, and it was pretty neat. I got to learn about the United States Special Forces and kind of what they did and how those guys held themselves, and it was really cool to be able to kind of work with them. So the tail end of that deployment kind of wraps up. You come back home, and this is becoming a rinse and repeat for us. You come back home, spend a little bit of time with the family, start to do some more training, and then go back over and deploy again. Went back to Afghanistan. This is my third combat deployment, 2009. This is about the height of the war, and actually I think to this day considered the bloodiest year was 2009 during that height and the surge in Afghanistan. First couple deployments, it's interesting, and maybe it was just fortunate for me or I was lucky, but I didn't really have to worry about too many casualties or I guess friends or buddies that I got to see get kind of hurt or killed on those first two deployments, so that was very lucky on that. However, this deployment was vastly different. After about 10 months in country or so, I think, like I said, it was one of the bloodiest in the war. Our battalion alone took about 25 casualties, KIAs, to different IEDs and everything, and I think our battalion was awarded about 75 Purple Hearts for all the injuries that were sustained over there. That was also kind of rough for me, too, because that's when I ended up losing my sniper partner, who was right in front of me. Was kind of blown up and killed just right there. That was the tail end of the deployment on that one. So after we wrapped that deployment up, it was a gut punch. You know, the first two rotations, you start to get in the rhythm of things. Most vets out there kind of feel like you're invincible to some set until some realistic stuff like that sets in, and then you realize, yeah, this is the real deal, you know. So I came back off that deployment, and it was rough, and I had to leave the unit. So from a psychological standpoint, it was really hard. I was in the 82nd for the last 5 years, did 3 combat tours with them, and by far that rotation was the toughest for me. So I ended up PCSing, going to the 101st Airborne Division, and got to spend my time kind of over there at a different unit. And what was interesting about that is as soon as I arrived to that unit, they were getting ready to head right back to combat. So that was, not what I was looking for at that moment, and I was not in that kind of space or time to be able to go back there. So I lucked out. I was able to make some connections, and I ended up getting on the 101st Parachute Demonstration Team. So that's a pretty cool gig, because if you ever see those guys that parachute and skydive into like football games, baseball games, air shows, anything like that, that was actually me for about 3 years with the United States Army. I got to jump into all these sporting games and represent the United States Army through the sport of skydiving. So it was really cool to be a part of that unit, which was also exactly what I needed to, because I needed to kind of clear my head and just kind of reset, because it was rough, the follow-on deployment. So 3 years goes by, we're jumping into football games, baseball games, air shows. I even got to go over to do Operation Market Garden, where we did the reenactment World War II jump over there in Holland and the Netherlands area. And that was really cool to see, because there was only about 7 of us on the skydiving team. And the rest of the people that were over there that were all in the 101st Airborne get-ups and everything was people from the Netherlands and France and everything. Like, they were representing us, and the amount of patriotism and respect that they had, that they would reenact all of these shows and demonstrations at their leisure. You know, all their clothes, everything, they would do the reenactment jumps. That's how much pride and respect they had for the United States military during that time in World War II, because they were, we liberated them from the Nazis at that time. So it was really cool to see them do all these reenactments and everything. That was probably one of my best skydive jumps, was representing that over there. At the tail end of the 3 years of the demo team, and then remembering that, working with the Special Forces and all that, I decided that I wanted to try out and go see if I had what it takes to become a Green Beret. There was about 422 guys that joined and signed up for Special Forces assessment and selection, and about 84 of us, I believe, that actually made it. And maybe I was just actually one of the dumb ones. I didn't get the memo to quit, but ended up making it and lucked out and was able to actually go through the Special Forces pipeline. I graduated, became a Green Beret, went down to 7 Special Forces group, and then once again, that became a rinse and repeat of numerous deployments, going over to South America, going over to Africa, going over to Iraq, Afghanistan, back and forth, again, rinse and repeat. It's been about 15 and a half years of service at this point in time, and it was really taking a toll on my family and everything like that, and the amount of deployments that I had done. So I had to make a decision. I had to either, continue my service for another 5 years, get the 20 and retire out, or leave active duty, go into the National Guard, continue my time, but just kind of reset and everything. So I ended up getting out, went to the National Guard, and as anyone knows, when they transition off, I think it's like a 90-95% rate of people who struggle when they actually leave service. And definitely a little bit of identity crisis. You're just kind of really figuring out how you kind of fit in this world. You had a certain mission set at one point in time, a team, a camaraderie of people, and then you kind of get thrown into the world of the unknown and in the civilian world, and you're not quite sure what to do or how to handle it. So that first year that I was still with the National Guard and everything, it was rough. That was a very rough year. Eventually, I went back to the only thing that I really knew, which was just multiple deployments. And so I ended up I got picked up and recruited by a 3-letter agency where I was an independent contractor, and I went over and worked with them for about another 4 years, doing another dozen combat deployments with them. About 4 years out into that, and 17 combat deployments later, I was burned out, absolutely burned out. And decided to hang my hat up, and I'm about 19 and a half years of service in, so I retire out in like 8 months. I'm super excited about that. But as I'm closing kind of one chapter of my, book in my life, I'm starting to open up another chapter. And that chapter right now is, as I was leaving off duty and off that unit, my time in Special Forces, I realized that there was a lot of problems going on with, mental trauma, physical and mental health illnesses, and then in particularly hormone imbalances and deficiencies going on among service members. And so we got tested and treated for that stuff in service, but they didn't do anything about it. So I leave service, and then eventually I'm kind of jobless at this time. I don't really know what I'm going to do, and I run into an old friend of mine who is a co-founder of a certain company, Transcend, and we eventually start up the Transcend Foundation, which is represented right here out of Auburn Hills, Michigan. Transcend Foundation is, their mission statement is, we aim to identify and address the invisible wounds. What are those? PTS, TBI, hormone imbalances, endocrine deficiencies going on. A lot of things that you don't see typically. So our foundation aims to give back to veterans and first responders at zero cost to them who are struggling with certain issues like that. So that's the new foundation that we just kind of stood up right now. And so as the executive director of the Transcend Foundation, it's interesting trying to navigate the space of what it's like working in a nonprofit, because I have no experience with that whatsoever. But what is kind of cool is, just like a Green Beret or any military guy for that matter, is that you in the military kind of know how to network and connect with people. And so that's pretty much what a bulk of the job is. It's doing a lot of connecting and managing that. But the privilege is being able to actually give back after 20 years of service, and then try and recognize those same wounds that I struggled with for several years, and then and be able to help those guys at zero cost to them. What's interesting about the nonprofit world is there's about 1.5 million nonprofits operating in the United States right now. Out of those, there's about 43,000 that are veteran service organizations. And I would say 99% of those are great organizations, and they represent more of a reactive foundation unit, right? Like there's a problem, these foundations recognize it, they stood themselves up as a foundation, and they address it. So they're kind of reactive. Transcend Foundation is that as well. All the veterans, first responders that are struggling with these issues, we identify those for those service members, we address them and get them back to baseline, back to homeostasis. So we're reactive as well. But I think what else is unique about the Transcend Foundation is that we're also probably part of the 1% that I would say is proactive. Because recognizing that these issues are going on within the United States military at any given time, I don't want to address these guys when they're coming out and they're broken and battered, and then we're trying to fix them up at that point in time. I want to address these things when they enlist in the United States Army day one, and start to pay attention to the different biomarkers, the blood works, the hormone panels, everything, to be able to help these service members while they're in service. When you recognize these things early on, you can address and fix these things relatively easy, and not let years go by where people are just not really addressing them at all. And so that's what the foundation kind of does. That's what the foundation is currently doing right now. And so again, I'm just a pleasure to kind of be able to be up here to kind of speak with you guys, to be able to share my story as a military veteran, and then talk a little bit about the foundation and what we're doing next. So again, I just want to say thank you to Jen and everyone for having me come out and be able to actually speak out here. And yeah. So at this time, I would like to honor the veterans who served in the following conflicts, and please stand if you are able. Iraq War Veterans, Operation Iraqi Freedom, March 2003 to November 2011, and Operation New Dawn, September 2010 to December 2011. If able, please stand. Yep. I'd like to welcome the Afghanistan war veterans. Operation Enduring Freedom, October 2001 to December 2014. Please stand. Take this time, anyone from Persian Gulf War, from 1991, Operation Desert Shield, Operation Desert Storm. If able, please stand. Vietnam War veterans, 1962, 1973. Please stand. Korean War, 1950 to 1953. Cold War, 1947 to 1991. World War II, 1941, 1945. Again, thanks for this time. Jen?
Thank you, Brenda.
Yeah.
Let's give a big round of applause to Brendan. At this time, I'd ask you to rise as Jane leads us in singing God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the nights with the light from above, through the mountains, through the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
So before we conclude, I'm just would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our sponsors today who generously supported our celebration. SMART, the Friends of the Senior Community Center, the American Legion Auxiliary Campbell Richmond Unit 63 and the Color Guard, Clarkston Medical Group, J-Dog Junk Removal and Hauling of Clarkston, Two Doors Down Realty with Christine Kilpatrick, the Vietnam Veterans of America Oakland County Chapter 133, Lowry's Landscape, A New Place to Call Home, Encore Villas at Deer Hill, Beauchamp Water Treatment Solutions. A special thanks to Jane Sorensen for leading us in singing the national anthem, and God Bless America. We have an awesome team of volunteers and our staff here at the Senior Community Center that spends a lot of time putting this event together. I'd like to thank them as well. Our volunteer bakers, our staff. So the Fabulous 50s band is going to be starting in about 15 minutes or so. We have 250 guests registered for lunch today. So if you are one of those who have registered for lunch with us today, we are going to be forming a line starting over at the entrance to my right, your left, Barch Hall. The line will start in, you'll get checked in. All those who are registered, they'll check you in. You'll wind your way through the Military Museum, through the Senior Center. You will come out the main entrance. If for some reason you can't get up the steps, we do have some folks here to assist you. They'll bring a meal out to you. Just let them know, and we'll get that meal out to you. So thank you for coming today. Enjoy the lunch, and enjoy the rest of our festivities today.